Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's edition of Roundabout Sports, presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. I'm the maestro, Jeremy Carpet. Alongside me is a man who refuses every single year to invite Angel Hernandez to Thanksgiving dinner, Hollywood James Knox.
That was good. That may be my favorite one. My favorite one yet. That was really good. That was really good.
Thank you, James. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. And I would love to invite. I would love to invite him for Thanksgiving dinner, but I'm pretty sure if I picked up the phone, he might blow the call. So,
jeez,
that was terrible.
I love it.
I'll see myself out. God,
I'm gonna have to start bringing like a little drum for a rim shot.
Yeah,
right out there.
Yeah.
So we originally tonight we're gonna have, for all those tuning in, we're originally gonna have Sadie Blaze on to continue the amazing interview that we had last week, which you can find on our YouTube channel, Interstate 70 Sports Media, on our Facebook pages, on Twitter. But Sadie is currently actually in Texas kicking ass in a World Series for softball that's gotten delayed because Missouri, surprisingly, is not the only state where the weather sucks. So I got a call from him earlier. He let me know, no harm, no foul. We're going to have him on in the future, folks. It's going to be a great time. But I told him to do me one favor, and it was simple. It was to win. So hopefully he follows through on that. We're rooting for you, Sadie. Can't wait to have you on the show again soon. So with that, there's somebody who has gotten a lot of attention lately, James.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about sports fans and their colorful personalities and what makes them just outlandish.
Mm-hmm.
This might be the worst baseball fan, if not probably one of the worst sports fans. Because let's put it this way. I'm going to call this guy the anti-Fireman Ed. Okay?
Okay.
Because Fireman Ed, for those who don't know, is a New York firefighter who always goes to Jets games wearing a Jets-like firefighter hat, keeping the crowd pumped through the good, the bad, and the butt fumbles and everything, getting them going.
Jets, Jets.
Exactly. And then you got Zach Hampel.
Ugh. Doesn't he just look like a douche?
This guy is just unbelievably. He's a clown without the mask.
Yep.
That's the best way to put it.
Pre-show, I quote unquote called him a fucking clown, and I completely mean it.
Yes, and James, you want to explain why, since you had those powerful words?
Because, so, God, do you remember playing sports as a kid, especially like playground basketball, and you'd always have the dumbass kid that would cherry pick? Yeah. That's what this guy reminds me of. I can't even take down the pitcher, Jeremy. Take down the pitcher. Take it down before I throat punch my computer. Take it down. So, he will fight little kids for foul balls. He's the one that in a group full of kids will like push his way through to get like a superstar's autograph. I cannot with this guy. Look how red my face is turning. Oh my God.
It's actually getting bad. And this is the thing, folks. He's a baseball collector who claims to have collected more than 11,000 baseballs from major league stadiums. And two of the most notable ones are Alex Rodriguez's 3,000th hit and Mike Trout's first career home run.
Yep.
Now, people, James just brought it up. The thing that's most notable about him is that he has allegedly been, and it has been shown, bumping children and other fans out of the way in order to get balls and autographs, memorabilia and whatnot. And one notable story, one of my favorites, is when Clayton Kershaw once refused to give Zach Hampel a ball, and he tweeted that when he asked Kershaw for the ball, Kershaw told him no because Hampel already had 7,000 of them.
Yeah.
That's the perfect way to go about it. I'm totally on Kershaw's side with this. Like, it's baseball is not just America's game, but it's family's game.
Right.
Like, it's supposed to be the cool thing where, you take the family out for a nice time, whether it's in the evening or the afternoon. And then you got this douche canoe that goes out there and just kills the vibe.
He's the exact reason that superstars won't sign for people over a certain age or won't give you an autograph on a ball or a hat or whatever else, because he's also the kind of guy that's not afraid to buy and sell and trade as well. So, I mean, this guy's he's such a clown. I mean, it's one thing, like, if you're 7 or 8, 9 years old and, you want to get foul balls and you want to start a collection, that's great and all. But this guy the only thing that would have made it better is if, like, Clayton Kershaw would have 99-mile-per-hour one right in his ear hole. I just can't stand this guy at all. I just can't. Baseball is a game of which grown men are playing a children's game. That's it. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be for the family, even though you can't afford it anymore for a family of 4. But, I mean, for the most part, I mean, it's a kid's game. Let the kids enjoy it. This guy needs to be throat punched, Jeremy. God, I can't stand this guy.
And it's funny because, I mean, he's written 3 books, and I'm telling you, the titles of the title of his first book just sums it all up. How to Snag Major League Baseballs. That is literally the title of his first book. Now he caught some of the other ones. He caught the last home run hit at Shea Stadium. He caught 2 home run balls in a single game. And he says he has a relationship with a lot of current and former major league players. I don't know how accurate it is. And, he's very detrimental to me, like, with the fan experience. If I was sitting next to him at a baseball game, I would be none the pleased about the whole thing.
Right. Can we get him Jose Altuve's garbage can from Houston and throw his ass in it?
I would love nothing. You know what? It'd be fun to have him on the show, though, just to have his perspective on what he's done, because this is a man with no regrets on what he does.
Effort him.
Yeah,
I'll talk to him.
Yeah, there we go. In fact, Zach, if you're even watching this show, which would be really freaking cool, we are extending an invitation for you to join us on Roundabout Sports. We would love to talk to you and try to delve deep into the interesting, controversial reputation you have.
I'm going to be the Eric Bischoff on the motorcycle in the middle of the ring calling out Vince McMahon with this one.
Oh, gosh. I'm just hoping you're not like the Vince McMahon throwing him into the dumpster.
Yeah, well, no.
So we had to get that out there because I'll explain why. Because he's been notorious for a long time, but most recently he was at Coors Field, where the Colorado Rockies play, and he attempted to enter a prohibited section of the stadium, and fans must have a specific ticket to enter that section, which he did not. He had publicly offered $1,000 to anyone who would give him a ticket.
Yep.
And, he claimed to have, or no, I'm sorry. That was at a different game, at the Fort Bragg game. Now, that was another incident. But no, he attempted to enter a prohibited section, which was a rule stating fans must have a specific ticket to enter. And security guards approached Hampel, told him he must remain seated while at the game or he will be ejected. And after that, of course, because it's social media, like he said, you guys don't know how to treat people. It's not good. You get an F for the fan experience.
Huh.
Okay, because you didn't get balls in your hands. It's
you want to rephrase that?
No, I actually do not, because it's that. I'm not doing that. No, in all honesty, because he did not get to enter the restricted section at Coors Field to catch home run balls, that he would have bumped children out of the way for at pregame.
Yeah,
apparently
Terrible.
just awful. And like, it's just unbelievable. It blows my mind.
He's actually been banned from a couple minor league stadiums too.
And oh gosh, what was it? The Portland Pickles?
Yes. Yep.
They've officially banned him. And I know a lot of people are going to ask, who are the Portland Pickles? James, you want to delve into that quickly?
Hey, they're a big deal.
Can't. You know what? Props to you on that. I will give you major props on that one. I
think they're an independent ball team because I don't think they're a Major League Baseball affiliated team. So I'm thinking they're an independent ball team.
Well, nevertheless, Zach Campbell can't go to any of their games. So with that, we're going to transition to something that both James and I enjoy a lot more than douchebag collectors.
Thank you.
Being the NFL season.
Yes, sir.
And hallelujah, it is upon us. Preseason is officially over. Teams have started to cut players, sign them to their practice squads, trade them. I mean, this is where 864 players' lives are getting changed forever because they're not going to either be on rosters or they're going to be on the practice squads. You know, some people, even if you just got drafted or undrafted this year, this could be the end of your career.
Yeah.
Which just shows you, even in the pro level, how fast things can change. But for the 53 men that are on the 32 teams in the NFL, they're going to try to dethrone the Los Angeles Rams as the defending Super Bowl champions. What jersey are you wearing?
I'm wearing my Matt Stafford jersey.
Okay. Meanwhile, while James over there is wearing the Rams NFC jersey, I'm rocking that dog mentality over here. Dog Pound Nation till I die, which at the rate they stress me out might be sooner rather than later. But nevertheless, so over the next 2 weeks, folks, here on Roundabout Sports, we're going to be previewing the entire NFL season. And as far as which team, every team, all 32 teams. This week, we're going to start with the NFC. Next week, it's going to be strictly the AFC. And we'll probably do our own predictions of the playoffs and our Super Bowl prediction as well at the end of next week. Or we might just do the NFC prediction for the playoffs here. We'll see how we put it together. Okay. So it's interesting because a lot of these teams had a lot of adjustments made during this past offseason. A lot of these teams in the NFC had very good drafts. In the case of one of the teams, their 45-year-old quarterback retired and came back. That being Tom Brady with the Buccaneers. So, like I said, we're going to go one by one. First, if you have any predictions of all, if you have any comment, be sure to comment on the stream. But you can find us on YouTube at Interstate 70 Sports Media. Find us on Facebook at Roundabout Sports, at Interstate 70 Sports Media as well. James and I are on Facebook. We're both on Twitter, so definitely be sure to tune in. With that, the first teams we're going to look at are from the NFC East, which I will be honest, James, which are the Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, Philadelphia Eagles, and the Washington Commanders. I'll be honest. These teams have improved from their 2021 equivalents. All except one, in my opinion. And that one is the Dallas Cowboys. So we'll start with the Dallas Cowboys, and I will kind of go through what I feel about this team right now. First off, the biggest things with them is that they lost their top wide receiver in Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was traded to the Cleveland Browns for just, like a 5th-round pick. And, he is a number 1 caliber wide receiver. Meanwhile, they lost La'el Collins to the Bengals. La'el Collins, one of the top offensive tackles, and he's going to definitely make an impact in Cincinnati, helping Joe Burrow out. Then they also lost Randy Gregory, who has definitely had a significant impact over the past few years. He was a big complementary to DeMarcus Lawrence on that defensive front. And Cedric Wilson, a good depth wide receiver, especially with Cooper out and when Michael Gallup was out.
Right.
So you look at the offense now. Zeke is still the lead powerhouse. He's that workhorse. But he's getting older. He's 28 years old, which, as an NFL running back, for folks saying 28 ain't old, for an NFL running back at 28's old. It really is. Especially when you've been used as much as he is.
And the injuries he's had, too.
And the injuries he's had. You're absolutely correct. Dalton Schultz, big fan of his, the tight end. He's going to be a huge impact on the field this year because Cooper's gone. Michael Gallup, as I said, is recovering from a torn ACL. He might miss the first couple weeks of the season, but he is expected to play, at least at the very latest by mid-2022.
Well, he passed his physical, so he was able to stay off the physically unable to perform list.
Right. So it's really looking like all systems are go for Gallup.
Right.
And then, honestly, before we get to Dak Prescott, who's the big name, obviously, let's talk about Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard is the second-string running back, but he plays like a first-string running back.
Yeah.
When Zeke's hurt, he rolls. And you go right ahead. Tell me.
Yeah,
tell me
University of Memphis product. And when he's on the field, I mean, I don't know if there's any drop off. I would argue that Pollard is actually faster than Ezekiel Elliott. Pollard certainly has the acceleration and the quick burst through the hole. He's got good lateral movement, and he's not afraid to run through you either. So it's one of those things where he can either run around you or he can run over you. So I think that you're probably going to see Mike McCarthy with a good balance of like 1A, 1B, 1A type thing. But I think the thing that I found the most interesting, kind of back to the Dak thing, is right now the Cowboys don't have a backup quarterback. They released everybody. They cut everybody. They cut Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush. They cut Will Grier as well. So and then what was it? What was his name? Ben
DiNucci.
Yeah, they cut him as well. So
I was going to say, what about Andy Dalton?
Yeah, right. Yeah, they may have to go back to him, but so you've got one quarterback on the roster. Also looking at big moves, you were talking about injuries and guys that have moved on. They lose their offensive lineman, Tyron Smith. He was placed on IR, and so was wide receiver veteran James Washington that had come over from the Pittsburgh Steelers. They placed him on IR earlier today as well. So the Cowboys, you're right. They may be the one team in the NFC that has not improved themselves, while it be either through the draft or free agency.
And Vegas right now has them projected to win about 10 games, finishing 10-7, which, I mean, I can see that. Like, let's see quickly who they have this year. I mean, obviously, in addition to their own opponents, they're going to be facing, the NFC North, which...
And they're going to play a first-place schedule.
Yes, that's the bigger key. What people don't understand is whatever place you finish in your division, the next year you face the other teams in the conference that finished that same place. So they're going to be playing the Packers, and they're playing the Rams.
And they open up against Tampa Bay, yeah.
And they open up against Tampa Bay. They're going to be playing the AFC South. And on top of that, here's another one. They're playing the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah.
The defending AFC champion. So, I mean, Dallas has his hands full.
That is a tough schedule.
Dallas has a very underrated tough schedule this year. I see them right now as more of a 7 I almost see them as 7-10, 8-9 at the moment.
I think it depends on how that defense comes together. I mean, they still have they have Trayvon Diggs, the corner that kind of anchors the secondary defensively. what's really, I think the key for them defensively is going to be up front, the front eight, and whether or not they can stop the run. They had that problem last year. And, you know, you're talking about a division where really you kind of expect the Giants to finish last, because I just don't know if Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, you know, can get that team out of the cellar. But look, Washington and Philadelphia are not going to be easy games. The Commanders have gotten better. The Eagles have certainly gotten better on the offensive side of the ball. So, you know, I'm kind of with you. I could see 8-9, maybe 9-8, but I'm not so sure that if you don't win 10 games, I don't think you win that division. You need to win at least 10 games. You've got to be in double digits. But the Cowboys are playing the Rams. They're playing the Buccaneers. They're playing the Packers. They're playing the Bengals. They've got the Colts. Don't sleep in this. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but don't sleep on the Jacksonville Jaguars either, because they're tough at home. You're talking about a team like the Cowboys that have to go and play a team like Jacksonville. You know, we've seen it with New England and Miami for years, when you've got a team that's either a cold weather team or a dome team that has to go play in humidity late in the year, and all of a sudden they don't have their legs under them late in the game. So I think the Cowboys, they've got their hands full. I think Mike McCarthy is on the hot seat. Matter of fact, I would say there's steam probably coming off his ass. And you're at the point now that Dak Prescott has been in the league long enough where it's time for him to grow up, mature, and if they're going to win now.
Well, you mentioned Trayvon Diggs, and the issue I have with Diggs is definitely a turnover machine, in the sense that he was one of the top leaders in interceptions last year. And I mean, he took it to the house multiple times. The problem is there's a reason for that. In perspective, it's because he struggles as a coverage corner.
Yep.
There's a reason guys like Darrelle Revis don't have a lot of interceptions. Our quarterbacks were so afraid to throw that way, they stayed away from him. If you're constantly throwing or constantly making interceptions, most case scenario is that's because of the quarterback throwing in your direction, because they're like, oh, I'm just going to test this kid out. And that's kind of what's been going on with Diggs. I will say linebacker group wise, two of the best, and Leighton Vander Esch, who went healthy, is really solid. And my favorite, if not my second favorite, rookie linebacker coming out of the class last year, Micah Parsons, who honestly you could put at D end if you want a quick rush off the line of scrimmage. So
he's very similar to that of Von Miller in terms of you could put him in as an edge rusher and he could get to the quarterback, or you could put him back at his linebacker spot and he can help stop the run. It's weird because, you know, Vander Esch, as you said, he's a fantastic player when he's healthy. His problem is staying healthy. But, you know, you're going to see Micah Parsons is going to get the Aaron Donald treatment this year. We're going to put 2 guys on you. We're going to put 3 guys on you and see if the rest of your team can, you know, still get penetration and get pressure. But you're right. Trayvon Diggs, it's the idea of jumping the route instead of setting back, because if he sits back, he knows he's going to get beat. He's not going to stop a guy like Cooper Kupp. He's not going to stop a guy like Allen Robinson, Devontae Adams. Certainly he's not going to stop his former teammate Amari Cooper. You know, those are guys that will blow by him. And, you know, and when you get to the safety part, or the safety aspect of that defensive core for the Cowboys, the safeties leave a lot to be desired. There's no over-the-top help. You can't play cover 1, cover 2, and expect 1 or 2 safeties to cut the field in quarters or in half, because they just don't have the legs and have the speed to be able to help the corners on the outside.
Right. And so Dallas definitely has, and this is also Dak's year. It has to be.
Yep.
Zeke is running low. His time, it's almost going to be a transition at this rate if Zeke struggles to Tony Pollard. Yep. And, you know, one of the biggest storylines coming out of Dallas in the past year or two was Dak and his contract. And, you know, is he the viable future is he the franchise quarterback? Not even the future, because he's been on the Cowboys for years now. But is he the guy to lead them to that title that they haven't won since I was born? So if you're Dallas, it has to be make or break this year. It absolutely has to be.
I think you ask Patrick Mahomes, and it only takes 13 seconds for something to go right. I think if you ask Dak Prescott, it only takes 14 seconds for something to go wrong.
Ooh, that is absolutely true. I love that. With that, we're going to move on to our next. Speaking of teams that, well, I would love to say it only takes 14 seconds to go something wrong, but things have been going wrong for this team for quite a while, and that is the New York Giants. And for the last 2 years, they finished second to last in scoring offenses and scoring. So they decided to do the smart thing. They went out and got themselves an offensive coordinator. They went out and signed as a new head coach, former Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll. And I like the move. I think it is a solid move on the part of the Giants. And you had brought up a couple names earlier, that being Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones. Okay, first off, Saquon Barkley is a top 5 running back when healthy. I'm putting huge emphasis on the word when, because the past 2 years, he's hardly been healthy. He's hardly been on the field. He's hardly produced. And for a guy that was drafted in the top 5 back in 2018, that's a bit of a problem. And with Daniel Jones, I mean, honestly, he's kind of got a mess of a receiving group to throw to. He's got Sterling Shepard, who's constantly injured, Kadarius Toney, who's hit or miss, Kenny Galladay, who doesn't even act like he wants to be there.
He may not be.
And he may not be there much longer because there's trade talks between multiple teams, apparently. Right. Who's also been inquired by a lot of teams. So now they did acquire Ricky Seals-Jones over the offseason, very solid dual threat tight end. But when you're Daniel Jones, you have a lot of question marks surrounding you. Daniel Jones has great legs when it comes to getting out of the pocket and evading the sacks. The problem is, when the receivers can't get open, at some point the pressure gets to you. And with the offensive line that he's dealing with, I mean, Andrew Thomas has not lived up to expectations. Joshua Ezunidu has not lived up to expectations. And they're still putting pieces together of this offense. But the thing of it is, James, when you look at the other teams in the division and in the NFC in general, putting the pieces together time is of the essence with this franchise.
I think it speaks to the Giants and how their roster's put together. And there's been rumblings between Brian Daboll and Kenny Galladay for a couple of weeks now, and I think it's gonna be one of those things where you're gonna just have to overhaul this team, and you're not going to get anything for Saquon in the trade market because he doesn't have anything left in the gas tank, unless it's just he moves to a different market. He becomes like just rejuvenated. Daniel Jones, I still scratch my head. Why in the hell the Giants traded up to take a quarterback from the University of North Carolina, and he had played like just a handful of games and a handful of snaps. I don't understand why they did that, but it speaks to their franchise. This team is going to go. This team's going 6-11, 5-12. It's going to be another long, just miserable fall and winter for those that are the fans of the New York Football Giants. But and obviously, I think they finished last in the division. I wonder. And you mentioned it. Brian Daboll he's a brilliant offensive mind, but I mean, you can shine it up real nice, and it's still just they're bad. There's really no other way to break it down. Apparently, they've taken taken calls for trades for wide receiver Darius Slayton.
Yep.
Galladay, I expect he could be on his way out too. I mean, what? For every step they take forward, they take 2 or 3 back. I mean, I don't put a lot of stock in them. If I was buying stock in them, it'd be like buying stock in Enron. If you remember them before
Yeah.
the issue and
I remember
Houston,
that.
inside trading, it's like, look, you're just, it's if you could go back in time on a time machine, in a time machine and get on the Titanic, and you realize at some point in time it's going to sink and it's going to be all over with. I think I'd rather be on the Titanic than watch Giants football.
Oof, I love that one. In my opinion, Giants are going to finish last. I'm giving them probably a 5-12 record, maybe even 4-13. I can definitely see it that the Giants finishing 5-12. There is one bright spot though, and this is what I find completely, I guess, ironic or contradicting. We've talked a lot about the offense, but to me, the best piece of this team right now is just one name, Kayvon Thibodeau, the rookie linebacker that they drafted number 5 overall from Oregon this year. One of the biggest threats any defense could ask for over the past few years. And I think if I'm the Giants, yeah, obviously you need to have an offense. But the way I see it, I mean, this kid's 21 years old. He is 6'4". His 40 dash was 4.5. A 6'4" guy who is 258 pounds and ran a 40-meter dash the 40-yard dash in 4.58 seconds. Like, are you kidding me? Do you not realize how unbelievable that is? And his senior year at Oregon was just spectacular. Or, I'm sorry, his junior year. He had 7 sacks. He played in 10 games, 2 forced fumbles. He's a 2-time first team all Pac-12. And
the kid's a snootful to try to block. I don't understand, like, and I understand building on the defensive side of the ball because you have to start somewhere. I just wish that, I have this mentality and this kind of framework, and it works similar for like teams that always draft near the top, whether it's the Jaguars, the Giants, whoever it may be. It's like, what benefits are you giving these teams for getting any better? I mean, yeah, everybody wants to win, but if not, you're going to draft near the top of the draft next year and you're going to get the hottest thing coming out of college. I feel bad for these kids that get put in these situations that are supposed to like try to lift and carry a franchise. I mean, look at Trevor Lawrence. Everybody thinks he's the next coming of, football Jesus or sunshine off of Remember the Titans. I don't understand. It makes no sense to me. There's just no benefits there of taking a kid like this to build around, because it's fine if you're trying to look for the next Lawrence Taylor, which we all know isn't out there. You're never going to find another player like that. Why not go to the offensive side of the ball? And look, and I think Kayvon Thibodeau, man, he can wreck shop. The kid is a stud. But, if nobody else on that defense is good enough to pick up the slack, why not just block him, make sure he's taken care of, and then you just run your offense the way you need to?
Yeah, and that's going to be something the Giants are going to have to address. And I got one more thing on this team, and it's this. And it's going to actually go back to the offense because we talked about how putrid they are, and it's justified. Because last year, I mentioned left tackle Andrew Thomas. What if I told you
he caught about 30 for 30?
Yeah.
What if I told you?
Yeah. What if I told you that he caught more touchdown passes than Kenny Galladay and Kadarius Toney combined?
Wow.
1.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's a problem.
When Kadarius Toney and Kenny Galladay can't catch more touchdowns than the left tackle, that's the sign of a lot of issues. And like I said, now they brought in an offensive-minded head coach. That should help somewhat. But honestly, the Giants are at the bottom of the ladder, and they're going to have to climb up. They're not even on the ladder yet.
They're going to need a miracle on 34th Street, aren't they?
Absolutely. Speaking of a team that let's put it this way: for a team that is trying to find their miracle, they're hoping that the quarterback they acquired can find a miracle himself. That being Carson Wentz and the Washington Commanders. Let me tell you something, folks. I will stand on this take. Carson Wentz has been up to this point a bust. And yes, he's won a Super Bowl. Guess what?
Whoa. He didn't win the Super Bowl.
Exactly, though. That's the point. People are going to say he has the ring, so he won a Super Bowl. Yeah, no, that's not how it works. Joe Germain has a Super Bowl ring. He's not the reason the Rams won Super Bowl 34. I like Joe Germain, but that's not
the throwback from the past. Mr. Ohio State quarterback Joe Germain. Wow.
Yeah, there you go. So, and Carson Wentz was traded to the Commanders from the Colts because he did so well in Indianapolis. In fact, he's the reason the Colts didn't make the playoffs last year.
So if I can, and if I may.
You may and you can.
Obviously, you know where I live. I live 10 miles south of Evansville, Indiana.
Yep.
I'm a native St. Louisan, or Metro East, if you will. But so being that close to Colts country, oh my God. If they could have legally gotten away with skinning Carson Wentz alive, they would have done so. Now, boy, and I've got a lot of friends that are Colts fans. Okay. And let me tell you what. So it was week 2 of last year. The Rams played in Indianapolis, and I went up there. My good friend Ronnie had to give him a shout out. He's a big Rams fan, huge Rams fan. So we just sometimes we like to poke the bear. Imagine me being an antagonist.
No.
Yeah, Mad Dawg really came out that Sunday. But I'll tell you what. So he threw 3 picks in that game, including I think it was Ramsey that got him. But anyway, so Aaron Donald rolled over on his 2 ankles and forced him out of that game. And then it was Sam Erlinger that came in, poor guy. And everybody was blaming Carson Wentz for Aaron Donald hitting him. That's how much these people hate Carson Wentz. So I know we'll get into the Colts next week, but my God, put it this way. You couldn't have gotten rid of Carson Wentz to the Colts was like COVID was to the population of Indiana. They wanted it gone, and they wanted it gone now.
Right. On the positive, though, if Carson Wentz doesn't one of 2 things are going to happen with the Commanders this year. Carson Wentz does rejuvenate himself and becomes the quarterback that he should have been years ago. And Washington makes a surprises everybody in the league because they're not a bad team. In fact, they have, to me, one of the best defensive lines in all of football with Jonathan Allen, Chase Young, and so many others down there. And like I think anyway. Go ahead.
I would say I think what hurts them too is unfortunately Chase Young will miss the first 4 games of the year because he was put on IR. And with the designation to return, so Chase Young misses the first 4. The other part of the story with their running back Brian Robinson being shot twice on Sunday,
that was
what appears to be a car or a car robbery or something like that. So, which good for him. Former Alabama running back, loved Brian Robinson. B-Rob was great, and they're not ruling him out coming back. Matter of fact, they didn't even put him on the PUP list or the non-football injury list or anything. So he may be back.
They put him on the BA list, the badass list.
No doubt. I knew at Alabama he was just that, but damn. And in mid daylight in DC saying, "Oh, we're saying to these guys, well, we're going to rob you." He's like, "You can kiss my ass too."
Right.
So you've got that problem. So the running game may be a little bit I do like Terry McLaurin. I like him a lot. He's the kind of receiver that can go up and get it. I feel bad for one player on the Washington Commanders roster, and that's Taylor Heineke. Love the kid. He's a Kaká OG. And I mean, even in the playoff game against Tampa a couple of years ago, he had Tom Brady and the Buccaneers on the ropes. I was cheering for the kid probably louder
That was
than
a
anybody.
close game.
Yeah, and I mean, he really showed up and played. I don't know. And certainly in Ron Rivera's system, now he's used to having game managers for quarterbacks. If you go back to his time in Carolina, I just don't know. Yeah, I have Washington third in this division, and I had them right around 500. So,
well, you can't really have 5. I was going to say, it's weird. You can't have a 500 anymore because
that's why I said around 500. I mean, they're going to finish third in the division. I just don't think they have enough firepower offensively to compete with the Cowboys or the next team we'll talk about.
Right. I look, and I was getting to and I forgot the other couple names on the defensive line. I was talking about Chase Young and Jonathan Allen, but then you got the defensive tackles and Montez Sweat and Daron Payne, which, like I said, right there, of course, Payne. When your last name is Payne, that just tells you all you need to know.
Well, and two big SEC defensive tackles. Montez Sweat went to Auburn. Daron Payne went to Alabama.
Jonathan Allen went to Alabama. So
we're talking about 2-3 big chunks of meat there that if you don't get good penetration or good push coming off the offensive line, you are not running the ball against that football team.
Right. You're really not. And on top of this, I'm having Washington – I'm having the Commanders around third. They could surprise and go to second. We'll have to see what the Cowboys do because look at this. Honestly, additions-wise, okay, let's put it this way. The Commanders lost Brandon Sheriff, their all-star, their all-pro guard, to the Jaguars.
Yep.
But guess who they got from the Jaguars? Pro Bowl guard Andrew Norwell. Yep. So it's not like they necessarily, I mean, both are great elite guards in the NFL, so it's not like it was a step down. So they're pretty balanced with that. And another thing I was getting at, one of two things are going to happen with the Commanders this year. Number one is Carson Wentz is going to rejuvenate himself, going to be the guy that everybody had hoped he was when he first came out of North Dakota State, and will play amazing next year. Number two, either he plays poorly or gets hurt again, and they put in the guy they drafted in the 5th round, who's actually been very talented in college, and that's Sam Howell from North Carolina. Now, his first 2 years, he was much more of a passer. The last year, he was more of a running quarterback. But dual threats are important in these days in the NFL. So, yeah. And I will say, though, they also lost Eric Flowers, another guard, and Landon Collins. They also lost another guy. So, yes, offensive line did take a hit, but getting Norwell is a very welcomed boost. So, I do, and I actually feel like they have one of the best coaches in the NFL at their side, in Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera is a guy. Yeah. Ron Rivera is a guy that you can rally around and really be motivated by for multiple reasons. Scott Turner, who has one of my favorite offensive playbook schemes in the NFL, and that's Eric Coryell, which is the way to go. And honestly, they got Jack Del Rio as their defense coordinator, who runs a 4-3. And this is year 3 for all 3 of these guys. So let's talk about consistency here. This is why I think they have a shot at obviously, every team has a shot at the top, but a lot of people are underestimating the Commanders. So I think if there's a team that could really be a sleeper, maybe even sneak in as a wild card, it could be Washington because there is a lot of consistency there, and they could surprise some people.
Well, I think, too, in past years, we've always looked, okay, so you mentioned them as a wild card team. Generally, it'd be like, okay, so, your division winners, and I'll tell you exactly what, I'll give you my division winners in the NFC right now. I have no problem doing that. The Rams in the West, Packers in the North. I'm now in the East, with the division we're talking about, I'm going to go out on a limb. I got the Eagles. I have Jalen Hurts and the Eagles winning that division.
I do too.
I have Tampa Bay winning the South. So there's your 4 division winners. In terms of wild card, you'd be like, oh, well, look at the Niners, look at the Seahawks, look at the Cardinals. Maybe Arizona in the West, but I think Seattle's fallen off tremendously. And San Francisco can't figure out who the hell their quarterback's going to be week 1 because you want Trey Lance to start, but yet you're going to restructure. We'll get to that in a minute. I know.
We're going to get to the NFC West situation.
But, I mean, I'll give you another one. And, you're talking about Carson Wentz and that draft. One of the wild card teams this year, write this down, will be Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions.
We're going to get to the NFC.
On Detroit. Don't do it.
Okay, we're going to get to Detroit and the rest of the NFC North and the rest of the NFC. But first, let's wrap up our NFC East with who we both predict is going to win the division. First off, I got Washington going 8-9 or 9-8.
Is it just me, or does the NFC East seem to be the most boring division in the NFC?
They're absolutely boring. And at one point, that was the NFC West. You go back 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
It was it was the worst. It was the most boring. And somehow, some way, it shifted to the NFC East, which at one point was the most exciting division in the NFC.
Good point by Jags History here, who comments in. Thanks for viewing again this week. Revenge game week 1 for the 2-0 linemen. He's right, because Washington plays Jacksonville in week 1.
That is absolutely true. So now we come to the Philadelphia Eagles, the team that James and I both feel is going to win the NFC East division. And why not? Because you just added for a team. First off, the Eagles lacked a good wide receiver group last year. So what did they do? They trade for Zach Pascal. They trade for A.J. Brown. Then in the defensive side, which has been an underrated part for years, they get Hassan Reddick. They get Kazir White. They get James. And then in a really bold move that I like, they went with Jordan Davis, the D tackle out of Georgia in the first round, to beef up that D line. I mean, Philly is ready. And the thing of it is, this is another thing. The only 2 notable players they lost was Alex Singleton and Rodney McLeod. So there's a lot of rollover into this season. Bring that with Nick Sirianni in his second year. And, I mean, Vegas has them at last year they finished 9-8. Vegas has them at about 9.5 win prediction, which is for 9th in ranking. I got them going. I got them 10-7, potentially even 11-6.
I've got them going 11-6, and I like Nick Sirianni's offensive mindset. And also, they did make a couple deals in the last 2 days too. The Saints traded defensive back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to the Eagles. And then the Eagles turned around today. We talked about their wide receiver core from last year.
Traded Jalen Reagor.
Yep, to the Minnesota Vikings in exchange for a 2023 7th rounder and a 2024 conditional 4th round pick that would de-escalate to a 5th round pick if certain statistical marks are not met. So, that deal right there helps. I think that clears the way for guys like Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and some other receivers in that core to get them going and get them more playing time. Plus, Minnesota needs another guy. I mean, they sent Stephon Diggs to Buffalo last year, and really all you had, you have Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, but Thielen has been dealing with injuries the last couple of years, and you needed somebody else. That could help. You got to have at least a third receiver to take attention away from those guys.
Exactly.
And Adam Thielen's not the same receiver he was 3-4 years ago. He's just not.
No. So basically, we're the same practically when it comes to our NFC East. We got the Eagles, followed by Dallas, followed by Washington, and last but not least, the Giants.
So Jack's history says that Gardner Minshew is winning the NFC East technically. Technically, no. That's Jalen Hurts' division. Jalen Hurts is a much better quarterback than Gardner Minshew.
Minshew just has the better facial hair.
Yeah, it's just the mustache, right?
It's the
Jalen Hurts.
stash.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts is a much better
Look at that.
quarterback, and he's got a better throwing arm. And while Minshew is tough and can move, Jalen Hurts is faster. You saw Jalen Hurts, pretty much he took over, helped Alabama win a national championship when Tua failed. And then he went to Oklahoma and got Oklahoma to the playoff as well with Lincoln Riley, who's now out on the West Coast coaching USC. Jalen Hurts, a year, and you can talk about all the Doug. This is what's funny. There is a big time connection here. So Minshew's in Philly now. Jalen Hurts is their starter. The issues that Jalen Hurts had in Philadelphia were because of Doug Peterson and that coaching staff, who now is coaching Jacksonville. Jacksonville, have fun with Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence, because that could cause issues as well.
Very much so. So with that, folks, we have our NFC East, but there is 3 more lovely divisions in the NFC to go. And next up on our list is the NFC North, which is the Chicago Bears, the Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers, and Minnesota Vikings. So, James, let me just tell you right now, there is one team who I feel is, at least going into the start of this regular season, the clear-cut favorite to finish last.
The Bears. The Bears.
Right there.
I didn't expect you to pop that up there.
No ifs, ands, or bears about it.
There you go.
There might not be a team that has lost more star power and just more key pieces in general than the Chicago Bears, at least in the NFC.
Right.
You lose Allen Robinson, your top wide receiver, to the Rams. So why not? Why not give the defending champs more weaponry?
Thank you.
Then, to make that matters worse, and I also think the Bears might be the worst run team, not running back, right now, because not only did they lose Khalil Mack to the Chargers, their other star linebacker, Roquan Smith, is extremely unhappy being on the Bears. Yeah. And so, no, to me, the Bears, I look at it as if they're one of the teams that, while they'll finish last, they'll still have a decent record for a last place team. I could see them going 6-11, 7-10. Only because, and yes, we are being generous to the Lions, but once again, we're going to get to them soon. This said, honestly, the Bears are just a mess overall because, Matt Eberflus is in his first year. Luke Getsy is in his first year as the offensive coordinator. Alan Williams is in his first year as the defensive coordinator. Oh. They're projected by Vegas to finish with about 6.5-ish wins. So,
yeah, Matt Eberflus comes over from Jacksonville. And he kind of put together his coaching staff there. They're all first years. Man, I don't know. And this doesn't, with all due respect to the coaching staff that they've had, the ones that they, whatever, Ryan Pace is the problem. The general manager is the issue here. And it all started with that damn Mitchell Trubisky draft. Could you imagine? What if I told you? I'm sorry, Eberflus was with the Colts. That's right. He was their offensive coordinator under Frank Reich. He actually interviewed for the Jacksonville job. So what if I told you that the Bears could have had Patrick Mahomes? Because they could have. Now, I don't know who the hell he would throw to. Because at the time, they still had A-Rob. They had Allen Robinson. They had the kid out of Memphis, Anthony Miller, who is a decent wide receiver. But other than that, they didn't have a running game. They were trying to do the balance between Tariq Cohen and Montgomery. I can't think of his first name, but yes, and you had Khalil Mack. You think about this. Think about all the talent they had. Oh boy. See now we
welcome
now
to the Night Owl from the Wrestle Talk podcast. Now, this is a guy you got to check out on Tuesday nights with some of the other amazing hosts with the Wrestle Talk podcast, best wrestling podcast out there. And yes, we are talking Bears and why that we feel that they're probably going to finish in last place. But of course, anything can happen. Night Owl, we'd love to have you on sometime, but be sure to give your comments on what are you thinking about the Bears this year.
I think I'm still at the point like we're running down players like guys like Khalil Mack and Roquan. He wants out of there. He's done. And it all other than Ryan Pace being an absolute just moron when it comes to drafting and player development, we go back to the double doink. That's where all of their problems started.
That's where they definitely continued.
I mean, the Bears could have been a Super Bowl team that year. They should have been a Super Bowl team that year.
The Bears were built for that Super Bowl that year.
It was the year that the Rams lost to the Patriots in that
worst
the most boring Super Bowl ever. You had an opportunity. The Bears had beat the Rams in the regular season because Khalil Mack had absolutely shut down the Rams. I mean, it was a cold-ass Sunday night. We got beat 16-3 by the Bears.
I remember that. My friends and I were there on primetime Sunday night.
I won $1,300 on that damn game because I bet against the Rams. But looking at it,
I felt like that's how much I spent in Chicago.
I'm a degenerate, whatever. So, but you look at if the Bears win that game, it changes the rest of the road to the Super Bowl. There was no way because the Rams would have had to go on the road to Chicago to try to beat them again. The Bears would have been the 1 seed, should have been the 1 seed. And yet, and poof, like that, pixie dust gone.
Yeah.
They look like stardust.
And I guess right now it's time to bring up, obviously, the face of this franchise for the years to come, and that's himself, Justin Fields, who I think is extreme. He is a stud. He's extremely talented. And yeah, we've been bashing the Bears a lot because of the boneheaded decisions they made. You build the right team around Justin Fields, you are going to really make noise in this, not just the NFC, but in the NFL as a whole. And this is what I also find interesting about the NFC North. Chicago has the youngest starting quarterback. Rodgers is on his way out. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's still playing at an elite level, but he's not playing till like he's 47, 48 type stuff.
Do you know why he's still playing at an elite level?
Oh gosh,
because he felt all the hands of his ancestors and felt all the love of the 100 years ancestors all over his body.
Oh jeez.
Hey, he's the one that said it.
Yes, I know he said it, but we'll get with the Packers and all them in a minute.
Look at him and tell me he doesn't look like some weird ass hippie.
He is
with all due respect to weird ass hippies.
Yeah. Anyway,
sorry. Whoa,
Ryan Pace. What's up?
Comment from Jags History. Field said his receivers wouldn't have made the Ohio State team. Did you hear that?
I did not. I will say. That said, I mean, Michigan's better anyway. No. Do I like Michigan more? Don't get me wrong. If Michigan beats Ohio State,
roll Tide.
You know what?
Tiger Nation. I love champions. What the hell's wrong with that?
I don't know. It depends on one thing. Did you like them before or after they were champions?
I went through some really bad years back before Saban became their head coach, man. Really bad years when Mike Shula was their head coach.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
I was going to say, look, we're talking about when Saban was still at LSU and even further back when he was at Michigan State.
I was in Miami. So, okay, we both got the Chicago Bears finishing. Well, first off, one more thing about Fields. Yes, Justin Fields definitely needs better talent around him. Darnell Mooney's a very good guy that you could build around.
I found the quote. Actually, I had a quote sent to me. This is from Justin Fields' own mouth. I'm throwing to guys who wouldn't have made sixth string at Ohio State. That's the biggest adjustment. When asked on the biggest adjustment of training camp. Woo! Way to rally around. Wow. I don't think we're going to rally around Justin Fields and play good football.
No. I found this is what I feel. It feels like they just got their arms like ripped out from hearing that comment. Like, this is the type of pain I would be feeling.
Like, if you're the offensive line, do you really want to block for this joker?
I mean, they sure didn't last year. And he didn't say it then. Remember his debut against the Browns? Everybody was excited, and because they're like, "Oh, Justin Fields going to do great." The Cleveland Browns literally held them to almost negative passing yardage. They sacked him 9 times. Which, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, but Bears fans sure as hell didn't. So, yes. Bottom line is the Bears are going to have to they're going to work to compete more, not to finish last, than they will to compete to play for first.
Right.
And the team they're going to compete with is the next team on our list, the Detroit Lions, who, look, I'm not going to lie, I'm loving this team right now.
Man,
they have perhaps my favorite coach in the entire NFL in Dan Campbell.
MCDC, baby. Motor City Dan Campbell.
Yeah. I mean, and let me tell you, and people who watch Hard Knocks, let me just show you what this just absolute stud of a coach. And mind you, he was also a player on the Detroit Lions when they went 0-16 back in 2008.
He was a mean ass tight end too, man. He could catch the ball, but boy, he could plow your ass over. He was on the team that the Rams went in the first weekend in November. That was the season the Rams went 1-15. Went in, and Steven Jackson had the game-winning touchdown run.
Yeah, and Jack's history. Before I go back on the whole Lions thing, Jack's history brought this up. Okay, and I do get that. Take it from a guy who has epilepsy as well. And one of my best friends has epilepsy. That might be all the more reason you might want some better blocking.
Did you really just go there?
I'm just saying.
Well,
I'm not the first one that said it, and I'm not the last that's going to say it.
When your life really does flash before your eyes.
So, yes, which is why I have – yes, you are still going to hell for that. Which is another reason I respect Justin Fields so much for being able to overcome something such as epilepsy and playing in the NFL. Because it's not exactly a good combination, but he's making it work, and I'm proud of him for it. So I wish him the best. Back to the Detroit Lions and back to the lovely Dan Campbell. I mean, look at this guy. He's just the guy that you can rally around. I love it. I freaking love Dan Campbell. Motor City Dan Campbell, absolutely. But on top of that, I talked earlier about Kayvon Thibodeau with the Giants. There's one guy who I think's even better than him, and that as far as defensive players in the draft, and that's Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan, the number 2 overall pick, defensive end, and he's going right into the starting role.
Yeah.
But they also got Jamison Williams, who's going to be out for a while. Might not play till October, maybe not even till November, but top rookie wide receiver, in my opinion, right there. Let me put it this way. If Williams and Hutchinson played all year, offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year, right there.
Hands down.
Without a doubt. They added DJ Chark from the Jaguars. They added Mike Hughes from the Chiefs, the defensive back. Garrett Griffin, the tight end from the Saints. And the only key departure they've had was not being able to re-sign Trey Flowers, Pro Bowl linebacker. So, which, yes, is a big loss, but nevertheless, they have a really young core group of guys. And on top of that, Let's talk about TJ Hawkinson. What a tight end, man, as far as a threat in both the passing game and the blocking game.
He is this generation's Dan Campbell. I actually drafted him on my fantasy football team just because I just love the way he plays the game. My
friend Seth did for the second year in a row, and I wish him the best of luck because hopefully we don't have to take him to Goodwill again for the second year in a row.
Oh dear.
Honestly, I'm gonna just say it. I will not lie when I say this. Our friend Seth was probably the most fly-looking person on Main Street, though. It kind of backfired. You know what? If he finishes next year, there's always a chance to try again.
Did he have the Macklemore thrift shop look going?
Bro, it kind of did look like that. He was looking stylish. I will give him props.
So what do you have?
We did order clown shoes, but he wouldn't wear them. Okay, nevertheless, okay, where I got the Lions finishing. Lions, I also have around 7-10, 7-10. I could also, and I'm looking at the schedule they got. First off, Vegas has them at about 6.5 wins.
Really?
The thing for them is, and this is where I think they might go 6-11, 7-10. They got to play the AFC East.
Ooh.
The NFC North faces the AFC East this year. That's going to be a problem.
I think they split with them.
Yeah, I can see them easily beating the Jets and the Dolphins.
I had them beating the Jets and the Patriots.
I don't
think the Patriots are near as good this year.
Well, that's definitely something we'll save on next week's preview. I'll tell you that much. I just don't think they're definitely not going to beat the Bills unless there's some major upset.
Right.
But I can see them going 3-1 against the East. But no, they start off. In fact, their first two games are at home against the Eagles and the Commanders.
Yep.
And they got the fortune of playing the Seahawks this year, who's not very good.
They play the Jaguars too.
Yeah, they played the Jaguars. They played the Panthers.
They played the Giants.
They played the Giants. So they got some games that very beatable. That said, I got them at about 6-11, 7-10, maybe even 8-9. What do you got, James?
I have them at 9-8 in the last wild card team in.
I got them as the last wild card team in, but it might be at 8-9.
Well, you really have the NFC as top heavy then, don't you? Because that means your last two wild cards could be on the verge of being around 500 or even having a losing record.
The thing of it is, though, and like I said, this will be something for next week. I still feel that the AFC is the more loaded power conference.
I agree with that.
That said, I feel that the NFC is the more overall balanced conference. The discrepancy between the best teams in the divisions in the AFC and the worst are so far apart as opposed to the ones in the NFC where it just feels like it's anybody's game.
Right.
Like, it's not as far-fetched to think the Lions could win the NFC North. It's not likely, super likely, but it's not completely out of the realm. It all revolves around another player we haven't talked about yet on the Lions before we move on, DeAndre Swift, who is expected to have an absolute breakout year this season, which I would love to see. And so and Jamal Williams, backup running back on the Lions.
Yep.
Overall, this is a team. Whereas the Bears are a team that have the quarterback and are missing the pieces around him, the Lions are the team that have the pieces, but the question still remains at quarterback.
Yeah, and
can Jared Goff reach that hurdle that, like we talked about with Carson Wentz? Jared Goff's had these struggles too. And can he bounce back to be what the number one overall pick in 2016 should be?
No, and here's why. Because Sean McVay didn't go to Detroit with him.
Is Jared Goff a system quarterback?
Yes, very much so. I mean, that's one of the reasons that when the trade was made to acquire Matthew Stafford from the Lions, there was a lot of talk, and it kind of opened itself up then that since Goff had been dealt, that the reason he was dealt, and even Sean McVay was frustrated with Jared Goff. Look, oh my God, Jared Goff drove me fucking bonkers when he was the Rams quarterback. You have one game. Let's go. I've got the perfect game for you. The win, the 55-51 win over the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. He was unbelievable. Threw for 400 yards, didn't turn the ball over. The very next week, against one of the worst teams in the damn league, we beat the Giants by 3 freaking points. And the only reason we did is because Greg Zuerlein at that time was still consistent. Because Jared Goff threw a pick 6 to Landon Collins, trying to get it to Robert Woods at the time, and the damn receiver was nowhere near him. With that being said, I love Jared Goff. And I think that Jared Goff has a lot to prove. He's got a chip on his shoulder.
A big-time chip.
And while he's not living in the glitz and glamour of Hollywood and the West Coast anymore, this is where he has a chance to solidify himself as a franchise quarterback. There's been so much talk about that, the Lions are just waiting to see if they can deal Goff or get out of this contract. And look, it's a big contract. Goff is making $33 million a year. So this is his chance. It's either now or the Lions will figure out some way to move on from him. Because there's not anybody else there's nobody that's going to take that deal. He's going to become either a cap casualty or he's going to get waived, and it's going to be the end of his career. Because there are some backups that he's better than, but Jared Goff has to understand that Sean McVay, he's not walking through that door.
I think it's almost similar to a Jimmy G and Baker Mayfield situation. Expensive quarterbacks, talented quarterbacks. Problem is, it's getting over that one hump right there. But nevertheless, Lions, I think, can make the wild card, be one of the biggest surprises of the NFL season this year.
Right.
Speaking of, you know what the Detroit Lions have that the Green Bay Packers don't?
Receivers.
Bingo. Let's put it this way. Devontae Adams had 132 catches last year. He's now on the Raiders. Combined, every wide receiver on the Green Bay Packers right now had 99 catches last year. That includes Randall Cobb, the new acquisition, Sammy Watkins, Alan Lazard. Obviously, they're not counting Christian Watson because they just drafted him this year, which is a good draft pick. Chris Olave to me was the top one in the draft, but they didn't get to him yet. Now, and they lost MVS to Marquez Valdez-Scantling to the Chiefs and Zadarius Smith, their linebacker, to the rival Vikings. The biggest thing of all this, though, because there wasn't a huge the entire season or the entire offseason and the past few seasons has revolved around not the on-field Aaron Rodgers, but the off-field Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
Because let me tell you something. Aaron Rodgers is 38 years old. Last year he threw 4 interceptions. 4. People talk about breakable and unbreakable records in sports. I'm going to tell you a record I don't think will ever be broken. The ratio of interceptions and touchdowns that Aaron Rodgers currently possesses.
Yep.
He has a legit chance to get to 500 touchdowns before he gets to 100 interceptions. And he's been in the league since 2005. So Aaron Rodgers is still playing at an elite level. The problem is now he's starting to become a distraction for the team.
Oh, yeah.
And even though he's a back-to-back MVP winner, surefire Hall of Famer, all the stuff you want out of a franchise player. Now Aaron Rodgers is running his mouth, saying all these things, causing all this controversy, basically being the media's top target, which I do find funny because there's so many other players you would think could be top targets for the media, but Aaron Rodgers is right there. Like, here, I got something else to say or to do. And yeah, here's the perfect one right there. Like Aaron Rodgers on Joe Rogan. Ugh. But no, in James,
that's Dr. Joe Rogan to you.
If he's a doctor, I'm the Pope.
I can barely get that out. You're right, though. I mean, Rodgers last year was the COVID conversation and the stuff he said on the Pat McAfee show, then on the Joe Rogan podcast. This year, it's the hallucinogenic drugs. I poked fun at the psychotropic stuff earlier about the ancestors' hands all over him and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, whatever. Maybe he's trying to become a top target for media since he doesn't have a top target himself. With all due respect to Alan Lazard, that's all he has receiving wise in terms of guys that can stretch the field. Sammy Watkins, I like the player, but I just don't think he's the same. He's not the same player he was early in his career, and he wasn't really all that then. I think he was made better by his quarterback at the time, Patrick Mahomes, when he was in Kansas City. Watkins played with the St. Louis Rams. I just don't put a lot of stock into that. I mean, obviously he's got Robert Tonyan as tight end. I mean, sure, the Packers are going to win the division, but it's because they're going to go, oh, that's right, I forgot about that.
Good times.
I think the Packers go 11-6. They're going to win the division, but
they're going to win, and I can see them going. I honestly see them going 12-5, and because for all the distractions Rodgers causes, he's still got a top head coach in Matt LaFleur alongside him. None of the schemes or philosophies have changed, well, except for the offense where it is a West Coast offensive-oriented coordinator in Adam Stevanik. But they still got Joe Barry on defense. Vegas has them at about 10 wins, 10.5, which it does make sense. I see them 11-6, 12-5, because they're still that team to beat. No, they're not the defending Super Bowl champs. And I'll be honest, I'm crazy for saying this. Maybe not. I think this is make or break for Aaron Rodgers.
I think it is too. I really do.
Because people don't realize Aaron Rodgers has not won the Super Bowl since 2010.
Yep.
And a lot of that was because of the amazing help he got on defense, especially with Charles Woodson.
Yep. Not
saying Rodgers didn't have anything to do with it, but Rodgers also went many years with the worst defense in the NFL. Now he's going into the season with, I'm going to just say it, alongside teams like the Giants and the Browns and the Texans, Green Bay has one of the worst receiver groups in the league.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's not that they're not talented, but just as an overall group, you stack it up against a lot of these other teams in the league. They're just not up there yet.
That's
fortunately for them. Fortunately for the Packers, they have two. Once again, I'm going to have to bring Cleveland into this because I think the Packers have the second best running back duo in the NFL.
Right.
And you can make an argument for first, but it's just how you look at it. It's Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon.
A.J. Dillon.
And A.J. Dillon, I remember when he got drafted, a lot of people were like infuriated at why would you draft him in the second round?
Yep.
Look what he's done, though. He's done a lot more in the second round than Jordan Love did from the first round.
He was the exact reason, the ultimate reason why the Packers held on to beat the Rams in Lambeau last year, because the Rams could not stop A.J. Dillon in his hard running style, and they were able to salt the clock away with him.
Exactly. And I just feel like when it comes playoff time, the Green Bay Packers have just not been able to pull through, because not only have they not won the Super Bowl since 2010, they haven't been to the Super Bowl since 2010.
it's crazy to think that in that period of time, the Rams have been to more Super Bowls than Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, because when they last won it, the Rams were still in St. Louis and struggling like hell. Meanwhile, and on top of that, 2 different quarterbacks have led the Rams to the Super Bowl. One of them winning. Yeah, Goff and Stafford. And honestly, let's not act like the one against the Patriots wasn't exactly close. It was. It just was very, very boring oriented. But yes, I got the Packers finishing first this year. Yep. Rodgers, the fountain of youth, he's practically bathing in it. As far as his talent, we'll just see how it is.
When you said that.
Yeah. So we'll see where it goes. I enjoy seeing new beginnings when it comes to veteran quarterbacks. I like seeing, because we've seen the whole Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers connection since 2013. Well, now you're putting one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, easily top 10. You could argue even top 5, putting him in there with this whole new brand new group of receivers, except for Randall Cobb, who you've been with for a long time and you've known for a long time.
We'll find out this year if Aaron Rodgers truly does make his receivers better.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the way to find out.
Yep.
To finish off the NFC North, we got an interesting team that not many people talk about unless they're talking about 2 players.
Well, I forgot about them.
Yeah. You got the Minnesota Vikings. And I'm just going to be honest. They're the definition of mid.
Yeah.
They're not a bad team.
They're the meh team in the division.
They're the meh team of the division. They're not bad. They're not great. They have a lot of talent, but they're not building as much around that talent.
Yeah.
They spent a long time with the same formula, and it got them nowhere. And the one year that they should have gone somewhere, they got their ass kicked in the NFC title game against the eventual champion Philadelphia Eagles.
Yep.
I remember when the Vikings beat the Saints, and everybody went nuts. They're like, the Vikings are going to go to Philly. We're going to see how this goes, and the people were rallying around Case Keenum and, Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs. That was a fully talented team right there. They just crapped the bed.
Yep.
And so right now you look at the Vikings, they've one thing that they've struggled with for a long time, excuse me, is their defense. The offense has been very good. Kirk Cousins, really good quarterback. I'd put him right now in the NFL top 15. Dalvin Cook, top 5 running back.
Yep.
Definitely top 10, probably top 5. So then you got the receivers. Adam Thielen, still really good. Justin Jefferson is a star in the making. He already is one.
Yep.
But the defense has been lacking for so long.
I agree.
So what do they do? Anthony Barr's gone. Michael Pierce is gone. Xavier Woods is gone. But what do? They get Jordan Hicks. They get Zadarius Smith. They draft Lewis Sine in the first round out of Georgia and put him alongside Harrison Smith.
Yeah.
Really good safety duo right there. And then they get Andrew Booth in the second round out of Clemson. So there's a key need right there for the pass defense. So Vikings are the mid team in the division, but they had the foundation to not be that. This is also the first year for their new coach, Kevin O'Connell, as well as offensive coordinator Wes Phillips and defensive coordinator Ed Donafel. So I'm excited. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I won't even say as much excited because they're not the team that so much wows me. I mean, just Kirk Cousins and just Jefferson, that offense does. But I'm definitely interested to see what noise, if any, the Vikings can make in the NFC or in the NFL in general this year.
Right. I've got them at 8 and 9. 9-8, somewhere in that vicinity. I have them finishing third in the division because I've got Packers, Lions, Vikings, and then the Bears going forward.
Same here. I got them going 7-10. I just feel like because there's a lot of new faces,
Yep.
and because it's a new coaching staff all around the board, it's going to take time to get used to it. I see them as more of a second half of the season team.
Agreed.
I see them finishing the season strong, probably winning 4 of their last 5 games.
Right.
But I definitely see it as a slow start to the season, and I wouldn't hold it against them. It's almost just kind of a standard thing in most cases.
Right.
So that's how. So basically, we got the same divisions so far as our standings: Packers, Lions, Vikings, and Bears. And with that, we head past near the hour and a half mark. Thank you for tuning in, everybody, to Roundabout Sports. I'm the maestro, Jeremy Karp, alongside Hollywood James Knox. And we are going through our NFC preview. We're doing the NFL preview over a 2-week span. This week, it is all about the NFC. Next week, it is all about the AFC. And also next week, tune in where we give you our final Super Bowl predictions. So we're looking forward to that. We now move on. We are halfway through the NFC. We now move on to the NFC South. And first up, we're just going to have to go right to them. The biggest news, the biggest team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, okay. First, let's just get the cat out of the bag here. Gronk is gone. And this time, I don't think he's coming back. Bruce Arians retired.
Gone.
Which was shocking. That, Gronk retiring did not shock me. I think it was fun for him to come back, win the Super Bowl, and then if he didn't do well this year, even if he did do well and it just didn't end well, no harm, no foul. He left. Bruce Arians, really, I did not expect him to retire.
Really?
I just didn't expect him to retire yet. I do like their new coach. Definitely with Todd Bowles. Yeah. I love having Byron Leftwich as their offensive coordinator. Right. That is in his 4th year. He has stuck around. He's been there since Brady's been there and before. That's why they call it the Brady offense.
Right.
But on top of this, they've made up for the fact that Gronk is gone because they went up and got Russell Gage, good wide receiver. They grabbed back in the draft. They also drafted Cade Otton in the 4th round out of Washington, who is a very good pass catcher, something that obviously Brady could use, especially now that Chris Godwin's out for quite a few weeks to start the regular season, and Mike Evans isn't getting any younger. Defensively, they gained Logan Ryan and Keanu Neal, which put them with Antoine Winfield Jr. The secondary of Tampa Bay is electric, and they got one of the best D tackles in Vita Vea and Devin White as their middle linebacker. I got no reason to believe the Bucs don't repeat as division champs yet again.
I agree, and the only thing that scares me is all on the offensive side of the ball with them losing their Pro Bowl center Ryan Jensen. I think offensive line issues are going to plague them, but it's only going to plague them against teams that have really good pass rushers. And don't look now, but the Buccaneers have to play the Rams. If you don't have your starting center or your starting guard, Aaron Donald's going to eat, and that's a big-ass dude to try to feed. Other than that, in that division, the only team I think that maybe pushes them would be the Saints. For some reason, Tom Brady has struggled against the Saints. But otherwise, I've got, and I'm going to kind of knock this out because I know we've been going for an hour and a half and we still have another division. But I still think that Tampa wins it. I think Tampa goes 12-5. I think the Saints win 10 games and go 10-7. And then you're probably looking at I know you're looking at the Falcons and the Panthers trying to keep each other out of the cellar during the NFL season. But it would not surprise me that the Saints push the Buccaneers in what could very well, I'm not even going to say his last year. It could be his last year. Hell, I don't know. He's 45. Like you said, he's got shit going on. But I still expect Tom Brady and the Buccaneers to win that division.
Tampa Bay is definitely my favorite. I got them at 12-5 because I still think Brady's going to do amazing next year. I feel like still. Problem I also have though is offensive line, but I also feel like there's still going to be health
Right.
regarding receivers and defense and offensive line all coming together. But overall, when you're on a Tom Brady led team, you rarely ever, let's put it this way, you rarely ever lose because he's never had a losing season. So
Right.
why have one now? I think he's good. The Buccaneers are going to finish 12-5 at best. I might even go 13-4.
Well, and
So
you're looking at too Byron Leftwich being a wonderful offensive coordinator, and Todd Bowles is a defensive minded head coach. So you let you let Byron Leftwich and Brady handle the offense, and then have Todd Bowles focus on the defense. It's going to be a team that's hard to beat. I will say this much: the one team outside of the division that Tom Brady has had a hard time beating has been the Los Angeles Rams, who are 3-0 against Tom Brady in the last 3 years or 2 years. Sorry.
Yeah. With that, we get our division leader, but now we go to the next team on our list. And you know what? They are such a complex team because for 13 years they had the same quarterback. And they got to the Super Bowl, and everybody knows what happened. Anybody that knows football knows what happened when the Falcons played the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And it did not end well. And meanwhile, after trying like hell to get Deshaun Watson, obviously it ended up the Browns got Deshaun Watson, but the team the two of the three teams that were most aggressive in trading for him are in this division that we'll be talking about soon. And one of them is our next team on the list, the Atlanta Falcons. And I look at, besides Matt Ryan, them losing him, I'm going to tell you right now, they may have lost one good quarterback, but they not only gained a pretty solid one in Marcus Mariota, but they drafted perhaps the biggest sleeper of all in Desmond Ridder.
Yep.
Desmond Ridder is a huge underrated guy. Drafted him in the 3rd round out of Cincinnati. And I mean, he's had very successful preseason so far. He went 14-21 for 185 yards and 1 touchdown against the Jags. But on top of Ridder, they went out and got Drake London, who is a top wide receiver out of USC, drafted him number 8 overall. So they also got Brian Edwards from the Raiders. Add them to Kyle Pitts, who is top 5 tight end in the NFL. Then add in the fact that, unfortunately, Calvin Ridley suspended this whole year. But take into account in 2023, if this core is still together, Falcons are just one of those teams where they're one-dimensional. And Cordell Patterson, that's the one more player I wanted to name. Cordell Patterson, one of the best dual threats, had a career year last year. The problem with all of it, though, direction.
Yeah.
It's Arthur Smith's 2nd year. It's Dave Ragone's 2nd year offensive coordinator. And I just don't feel that right now they are poised to make much movement this season. I think it's just kind of seeing where you're at for the future. This is definitely a year where I can see the Falcons finishing last, probably at about 6-11.
I agree. There's not really much more to say about the Falcons. It's just kind of, they're a man team. They're plain and simple. They are one-dimensional. You can't burn out one of your best players in Cordell Patterson and expect to. Yeah, you're just. Matter of fact, it wouldn't surprise me if they ended up 5-12. They're just not a good team. However, I think that the future is bright for Desmond Ridder. I certainly think that Kyle Pitts gets better. Give it a year or two and add a couple defensive pieces, and they could very well Well, that can get rid of Tom Brady in your division, and I could see them near the top of the division.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we come to our third team in the NFC South, and that talk about quarterback situations. Probably one of the craziest, strangest, unexpected ones of all, and that's with the Carolina Panthers. So we have ourselves Sam Darnold as the starter. Until a guy by the name of Baker Mayfield gets traded from Cleveland to the Panthers, and has taken over the spot. They made it clear Baker will start week 1 against who else? The Cleveland Browns. So they also drafted Matt Corral out of Ole Miss, but he dealt with a less frank injury in his foot, and he's out for the season already, which definitely hurts, no pun intended, because Darnold's had his struggles. Mayfield's had his struggles. Both are talented, but this is how a quarterback should be. This is how Darnold is, and this is how Mayfield is.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, the Panthers have perhaps the best running back in the NFL in Christian McCaffrey.
Yep. Run CMC.
But much like a lot of the top running backs we've talked about tonight,
can't stay healthy.
Yep. 3 years in a row, this has happened. He has had a great start to the season, and then either it's a hamstring or an ankle or ACL, something. He is out. And
I would say, not to stop you, we're headed to we're getting free baseball in Cincinnati. Cardinals and Reds go to the 10th, tied at 2.
Ooh, how about that? Hopefully the Cardinals can pull off the win, because they definitely do need it.
Right.
But anyway, with Carolina, Christian McCaffrey is the guy you need to build that team around. You could have Baker Mayfield as a game manager, but you need CMC healthy. Get him a line. Get him. I mean, you got a great receiving group now. You got Rashard Higgins. You obviously got DJ Moore.
Yeah.
So you got Robbie Anderson. I mean, these are some good players, good quality guys. Very underrated defense, especially now that you got Corey Littleton from the Raiders, former Rams linebacker, and you got Brian Burns, who's a really, really star caliber defensive end. The big thing, though, it just comes to the health of CMC, because Matt Ruley is in his 3rd year. Ben McAdoo, former Giants coach, is in his 1st year as offense. He also runs the Air Coryell scheme, which is where I do have an issue. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite scheme in the league, but it doesn't fit what the talent on the Panthers have.
It's the wrong scheme. Yep.
And that's where I think the Panthers might actually finish with 7-10, maybe only 7 wins, maybe only 6. Vegas has them at about 6.5. Yeah. So we're looking in that ballpark, because, Matt Ruley is a good head coach, but if you don't have the right scheme surrounding you, your team's not set up for success. And Baker's shoulder is still a question. And on top of that, the scheme doesn't work. That's the big key of all this. So when you have a running back, Christian McCaffrey on your team, you cannot be running an air raid offense.
No. You're right. You're right. I'm with you.
That's where I look at it. And now we come to the team where we finish off the NFC South with the New Orleans Saints, who once again here's a team that once again, one of the best off seasons in the NFL. They also were one of the teams inquiring about Deshaun Watson. They did not get him. Last year, Jameis Winston tore his ACL. They also have Taysom Hill, who is one of the more fun players to watch in the NFL because he does it all. But they went out and got a couple really good wide receivers, not only Jarvis Landry from Cleveland, but they got Chris Olave in the first round, number 11 from Ohio State, which line them up opposite Michael Thomas or alongside Michael Thomas. Look at those three weapons you just got right there. Then, of course, Alvin Kamara. We got another top 10 back in the backfield. Mark Ingram's still a very good veteran presence.
I think you have to hope that Alvin Kamara doesn't get suspended by the NFL after his little incident in Vegas. We go back to early in the offseason. Yeah. But I mean, you're right. Even without him, even if he misses the first 4 games or 6 games, whatever it is, Mark Ingram, while a different style of running back, is still a load to handle, and he's a very good running back. So there's still going to be a multi-dimension team. Plus, you throw in Taysom Hill, and you never know what he's going to do. I really think that they finished second in the division, and they're going to be a fun team to watch. They're going to be interesting, but I think they're going to be a roller coaster. I think it's going to be up and down. I think the highs will be really high, and I think the lows will be really low. I mean, Jameis Winston is your quarterback.
The lows are going to be depressing, but I will say also the defense is going to look even better. You got the Honey Badger from Kansas City. You got Marcus May filling in for the departing Marcus Williams. Yep. That right there. The NFC South, I just mean the NFC in general, have really stocked up on safeties. Yeah. They've done a really good job and really boosting their secondaries. And with Lattimore still at the lead corner spot for the Saints, and you still got Marcus Davenport anchoring the defensive line. New Orleans has a lot of talent. They will probably win. I can see them being a wild card team. I see them going.
I can too.
I can see them going 9-8. 9-8 looks like a very ideal spot for them, especially. And there is one more big aspect for the Saints. Sean Payton's gone.
Yeah, that's true.
He's retired. But they got Dennis Allen, who's a very good head coach. This is a good chance for them to create a new. I mean, the era of Drew Brees and Sean Payton is officially over.
Yeah.
While you still don't know who your future quarterback is for the franchise long term, this is that bridge era.
Right.
And you can make the most of it. And like I said, New Orleans, very good chance to make the wild card. So with that, we are down to our lovely Final Four. Oh, excuse me. And that is the NFC West, my friend. And we will start with, let's go with the 49ers, shall we?
Oh, okay.
We'll go with the 49ers. And you know what? We're going to, we're going to go with the Niners, and we'll end it with the defending Super Bowl champs.
All righty.
Because obviously that's the most to talk about. All right. So, where do you with everything they've been dealing with this year?
Well, I think what it comes down to, I mean, you look at the Niners, you look at the quarterback issues and the Trey Lance issue and Jimmy G, and you want to hand the team off to Trey Lance. He got to play some last year because Garoppolo was hurt. I don't understand the restructuring of Jimmy Garoppolo's contract. There were rumors that their general manager over there, Lynch, the reason he didn't cut or that they didn't let Jimmy G go is because they were afraid Seattle would take him in free agency or pick him up, and the Niners play the Seahawks in week 2. I think Trey Lance is going to struggle. I think he has a bright future, but you're not playing in a division in which defenses lack. I mean, you look at the defending Super Bowl champions with the Rams, with guys like Aaron Donald and now the newly acquired Bobby Wagner, Jalen Ramsey. Those guys, the secondary is tight. You look at Seattle. Seattle's going to be the one team, I think, defensively that he probably lights up. And then you look at Arizona. Arizona is still Arizona. I mean, even though they struggled last year in the playoffs, obviously Kyler Murray, their struggles are on the offensive side of the ball, not so much on the defensive side of the ball. You're still looking at a defense that's anchored by J.J. Watt and then the secondary Budda Baker. So San Francisco has their work cut out for them. They've dealt with injuries. They have a strong defense as well. They've given the Rams fits, oddly enough, over the last couple of years. That Schottenheimer's scheme just in general has beaten Sean McVay. But I think Seattle finishes third in the division. I don't think we're kidding anybody by saying Seattle's going to finish last just because they don't have quarterback play. the rumor is if you have more than one quarterback, you don't have a quarterback at all. So I think San Francisco struggles. I think that they'll finish third, but I think there's going to be some growing pains over there. And I think certainly before we get to San Francisco's bye week, the Jimmy G, where there's smoke, there's fire talk happens again. And don't be surprised if he doesn't get dealt.
It could very well happen based off. I think this is also just a way to buy time for the whole situation, because similar to, once again, I mean, it's almost beating a dead horse, but similar to with Baker Mayfield, Cleveland did not want to release him because they knew what would happen.
Right.
He
would end up in Pittsburgh.
Exactly. And if you release Jimmy G, the absolute first stop he's going is Seattle.
Guarantee it.
But the problem is San Francisco has no leverage. They have no leverage to trade Jimmy G.
You're right.
So I feel like have restructured Jimmy G's deal to buy time, to find a way to create some more leverage, to try to convince some teams, maybe wait out and see if there is a team that really needs a quarterback besides Seattle. And because Pittsburgh, obviously, you would wonder about a starter, but then obviously they went out and drafted Kenny Pickett. Yep. And so, but no, I got San Francisco finishing. I actually have them in second place in the division. Okay. I got San Francisco at 10 wins. I got them 10-7. I think the fact there's a lot of rollover is going to really help. The biggest loss was Raheem Mostert.
Yeah,
honestly,
he ends up in Miami. Yeah,
and he goes to Miami, so you'll be hearing more about him next week. But Raheem Mostert, really solid running back. I like the fact that Kyle Shanahan is sticking around, 6th year as a head coach of the 49ers.
I think I said Schottenheimer. I meant Shanahan. My bad.
You're Kyle. Good. And he manages the offense, and they run the West Coast offense,
right?
Which plays perfectly to who they have. Contrary to Carolina, San Francisco has the perfect match of schemes and players. And also defensively, Nick Bosa, forced to be reckoned with, still such a young guy.
He may be better than his brother Joey. Don't sleep on that.
A lot of people have been saying that, and I would not say they're wrong.
Yeah.
I think Joey Bosa, and first off, you end up on the same team. That would be fun as hell to watch. But nevertheless, Nick Bosa you could easily make the argument that he's better than Joey. But I also do like that they drafted Drake Jackson, D-end out of USC.
Yeah.
To, once again, he could be a good piece on the side at the defensive end position. Or if they need to sub him in, put him in alongside Nick Bosa.
Yep.
See how that goes.
Yep.
But overall, yeah, I see them going about 10-7, same as last year. I see their offense doing really well, and I see their defense doing really well. Deebo Samuel, going to be another dual threat force of nature, just like last year. I feel like it's not going to be much different, except the starting quarterback's going to be Trey Lance.
Deebo Samuel is such a freaking nightmare. I was really hoping that they wouldn't have come to terms with him and he would have moved out of the NFC West. But I'm with you. Like you say 10 wins. I've got him at 9-8. Look, this may be, with the exception of the Seahawks, and they may jump up and surprise a lot of people, this may be one of the tougher divisions. This may be the toughest division in the NFC, to be honest with you. One, because it's a black and blue division. They beat the absolute hell out of each other. So, but I'm with you in terms of, now you've got them in second, I've got them in third, but I think they're interchangeable. I think there's one team in this division that kind of runs away with it. I think we can both agree with that, although it may hate you may hate to say that. But I really do think that other than that top team, I think the other three are kind of interchangeable.
Yeah. And we're at the point where when it comes to Seattle, we're going to go to Seattle now.
The Seahawks.
Yeah. And they're going to finish last, almost guaranteed. And I'm going to tell you why. Even though they got Pete Carroll in his 13th year as head coach, I'm just going to name 4 guys who are not on that team anymore. Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, Chris Carson, Gerald Everett. That's it. That is it. And your starting quarterback should be Geno Smith at the moment, but they might make it Drew Lock.
No, they named Geno Smith as the starter for week 1.
Which does make sense because he is the one that's familiar with the system the most. And he did almost pull off a big upset against Pittsburgh last year, which I was so frustrated Pittsburgh won that.
Matter of fact, our old St. Louis radio friend, Tony Softly, is the one that reported that.
Well, how about that? There you go, Tony. Thank you so much for that. And they're just a mess. I'm sorry. And there's not much to it. I'm gonna put them at 4-13, unless if not 5-11, or I'm sorry, 5-12. I do not expect Seattle to have a good year. Like, even when you got the receiving group that you have with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Marquise Goodwin, you still need a guy to throw to them. And I'm not saying Geno Smith's bad, but he's the worst ranked quarterback in that division.
By far.
He's probably one of the lowest ranked ones in the entire NFC, if not NFL.
I've got him going 5-12 and finishing dead last in the division.
Yeah. So we're not kind to the Seahawks, but then again, they were never kind to us. Okay. Payback's a bitch, ain't it? Okay. Next, we go to the Arizona Cardinals, and this is an interesting one.
You got to keep Kyler Murray from being able to buy Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Stay off the video games, bruh.
Well, this is another problem. So they lost Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones is no longer on the team after a long time. I mean, he's had 10-plus sacks 5 times with the Cardinals.
Yep.
That's not an easy stat to replace right off the bat. Christian Kirk, a very good slot receiver. Where's he? Goes to Jacksonville, the $70 million man. Yeah. Then you got Chase Edmonds, goes to the Dolphins, who's now going to be the top running back there. Yep. Jordan Hicks, like we talked about earlier, went to the Vikings. They didn't do much as far as acquisitions, and the one they didn't turn out well at first. Marquise Brown from the Ravens.
And he's going to miss time due to the reckless driving.
We talked about that last week. We talked about that last week. And then top 2 wide receiver, if not the top wide receiver in the NFL, Devontae Adams. Or not Devontae Adams is a top 2, top 1 wide receiver. But DeAndre Hopkins out the first 6 games. Because of the performance-enhancing drug wellness violation. So he's out for the first 6 games. And to put it on record, I'm just going to say it, first 6 games, I'm telling you, this is going to bite. This is why I think Arizona's finishing 3rd, because it's going to bite them in the ass. They got the first 2, home against the Chiefs.
Ooh.
Home against the Rams, at Carolina. Home against the Eagles, and then at Seattle.
Dude, they're going 2-4, or if not 1-5.
Yeah, so that's what I'm.
Wipes off of them too.
You could easily enter Week 4 at Carolina 0-3.
Yeah,
I would not put it past them too.
I'd love to see it.
Yes, I would love it too. I like Kyler Murray, but at the same time, the Cliff Kingsbury Kyler Murray pairing, at some point it has to pay off. And you can't wait forever. First off, I also think, and this is one quick side note before we move on quickly, Kyler Murray did the A's dirty. The Oakland A's got done dirty.
Yeah, they did.
They drafted him only for Kyle to be like, yeah, I'll play football. Then the A's should have been compensated somehow.
I agree.
And I think it's unjustly, wrong. So, that's one thing I have always disliked about,
I think before either one of the drafts, I think the player has to designate which sport they're going to play.
Exactly. It is not fair. It is not.
It's not
playing one sport and then going to another is one thing.
Right. Let's not play the market against each other to see where I'm going to make the most money. And that's what happened.
And we all knew that he would make more money in Phoenix than he would in Oakland. Yeah. So, but yeah, Arizona, I got winning. So I got them going 8-9, maybe 9-8. they're going to be fighting a lot with San Francisco for second place. And there's a chance, hear me out on this, James Conner, really good starting running back. I think having him there is going to really boost the offense. Arizona does have a chance at the wild card.
Yeah.
They have a chance at a wild card spot. And so you could have 2 out of the 3 wild card teams coming out of the NFC West.
That's what happened last year.
Yeah, exactly. So it could very well happen again.
I have them at 9-8 as well. I think you're right. I think that they're going to battle with San Francisco back and forth in that 2-3, and it's. I think they probably both end up with the same record, and it comes down to a tiebreaker.
Absolutely. Well, with that, we get to our final. Oh boy, our final team in the NFC. James, how about you kick us off with the defending Super Bowl champs, the Los Angeles Rams?
Did it hurt you to say that? You look like you were passing a kidney stone.
Might have rather have done that than announce the Rams as the defending champs.
So the Rams, as you've mentioned, are the defending Super Bowl champions. Of course, they're led by Matthew Stafford, the All-Pro Super Bowl MVP Cooper Kupp at wide receiver. They get their main running back Cam Akers back at 100% health. He and Darrell Henderson will anchor that backfield. You've got Tyler Higbee, the Western Kentucky University product. He is at tight end. He'll be the starter. Yes, so they made 2 big additions to the club. On offense, of course, getting Allen Robinson in free agency from the Bears. And then on defense, bye-bye Seattle, hello Los Angeles. It's middle linebacker Bobby Wagner leaves the Seahawks after playing his entire career there and is now a Ram. The Rams, of course, their big main they did have some losses when it came down to it. Darius Williams, the CB2 on the depth chart, he's now a Jacksonville Jaguar. Sebastian Joseph Day, who was an anchor on that line, he moves on as well. But overall, the Rams are pretty much, from what they lost, they reloaded. So yes, I have the Rams winning the division. I have them going 13-4, and hashtag run it back.
This is how I look at it. First off, Joe Noteboom is going to have a big task filling in the shoes of Andrew Whitworth, who could very well be a future Hall of Famer. It's amazing. Andrew Whitworth, the oldest player to play in the Super Bowl. The oldest tackle, not player, oldest tackle to ever play in the Super Bowl, and ending his career with the Super Bowl ring, which is the only way to end it. At 40 years old. So, and then losing Von Miller to the Bills, Robert Woods going to the Titans. But like you said, they made up for the receiver, Allen Robinson. They made up for Von Miller going by picking up Bobby Wagner. It is literally the Rams are switching back and forth.
I'll tell you this much, and I'm going to step away from being, Mr. Fanboy here for a second. We play a very tough schedule this year. We play a first-place schedule. We play the AFC West. We've got to go to Kansas City, which I am so looking. Look, win or lose, that game is going to be off the hook. Why in the hell that game is not a primetime, like Monday night game, I'll never know.
Put on Sunday night.
Well, same thing. I mean, it's
right. I get it. Prime time.
It's a 3:25 game.
CBS, baby.
So you've got that. Of course, they open up at home in 9 days, 8 days, whatever it is now. Thank God we're at football season, and we host the Buffalo Bills, folks. If you want to see a good old-fashioned Wild West shootout at the OK Corral, tune into that one on NBC that Thursday night. Because with the 2 offenses you're going to see, and then you've got Von Miller taking on his old club in the Rams. And, I mean, look, I'll tell you what. If the over-under, I think, was 52.5, folks, they're going to blow it out of the water. Both teams are going to score 30 points, hands down.
This is the thing. I got the Rams. Rams, in my opinion, are going to have the best record in the NFC next year. I feel they're either going to go 13-4, or quite frankly, I think they can go 14-3.
Damn. Okay.
I think the only 3 teams that really will make it hell for them are the Buffalo Bills week 1, the Buccaneers week 9, and the Chiefs week 12.
I agree with that. I agree. I think Tom Brady. I think the Tom Brady. Well, with all due respect, and excuse my French, the Tom Brady "fuck you" tour is coming to a city near you, and
Right.
he's. I do think. Maybe it's just me. Hang on. Sorry, Pujols just flew out to deep right, so that's why I paused there for a second. We're in the top of the 11th. It's still 2-2. Arenado's on third with 1 out, but. Oof. I think Brady is kind of he kicked the can down the road, thinking, one, when he got home and he's like, damn, I don't want to be around all these kids. Let me get back to work. Two, I think he honestly wants another chance to win a Super Bowl. So, but I'm with you. I do think the Rams are the 1 seed in the NFC. And I think the 2 toughest teams that give them the best run are the Bills and the Chiefs. And it would not surprise me. And I say this now on, August 31st. Don't be surprised if it's not the Rams and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
It could very well happen. People thought it was going to happen a few years ago when it was in 2018.
It very well could have happened and maybe should have happened last year.
Yeah, when they won 54-50, when the Rams won 54-51.
Yep.
But no, I look at the schedule. The teams I also think that should be on watch to beat the Rams, definitely the Broncos, which we'll talk about next week. We'll talk about the Chargers next week, the Raiders next week. A lot of these teams actually come from the AFC, which brings to my point, the Rams are the favorite in the NFC.
Right. And what did I say? The AFC West is the division that scares me. That's the division we play. Look at the quarterbacks and the weapons in that division. I know we'll get into that next week, but Chargers have Justin Herbert, who I love. I think he's a stud. The Raiders have Derek Carr, who's now 10 times better since he's got Darren Waller, and now he has Devontae Adams, not to mention Josh Jacobs at running back. Okay, then you've got Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, and God knows we know the legend of Patrick Mahomes. And then you look at, what team am I missing here? The Chargers, Broncos, Chiefs, right? Well, okay, so then the Broncos with good old, friend Russell Wilson, who played in Seattle for all those years. So he's familiar with the Rams as well. They are going to have their hands full. But defensively, I think it's going to be – I think the Rams defense is better this year than they were last year. And I think the offense – I don't know if Cooper Kupp can repeat what he did. But, he says that the chemistry he has with Matthew Stafford has only gotten stronger. That's kind of scary for the rest of the NFC.
I look at it like this. No team has repeated as Super Bowl champs since the Patriots did in 2004.
Yep.
And
beat the Panthers in 2003 in the Janet Jackson Super Bowl, and then beat the Eagles the following year. Yep.
And both were fantastic Super Bowls too. Especially the Panthers one was probably one of the greatest I've ever seen.
It was a good game.
Vegas has the Rams going 10, I guess 10.5 wins.
So 11.
Yeah. So basically 11. We have them higher, no issue with that. But overall, I mean, I got the Rams, Niners, Cardinals, and then way down below is the Seahawks.
Yeah, I've got the Cardinals and the Niners flipped. So again, very similar.
Very similar. And honestly, these teams are pretty well set and built for the start of the regular season. The Rams will face the Bills September 8th, the very first game on Thursday night. And you could not ask for a much better opening game for the season. I remember last year, the first game was the Cowboys and the Buccaneers.
Yep. And
that was a really good game too, but I'm telling you, basically Josh Allen versus Matt Stafford with the defenses both teams have.
So we've got, I would say, the interesting question from Jags History. What do you think of the new Amazon Prime football that will be exclusively be used on Thursday night? So I did tune in to a little bit of the Thursday night preseason game they did with Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit of College Game Day fame. That I'm sure that's where everybody knows him from, is from ESPN. I like it. I think you could tell that those two are still getting used to each other, but I like the fact that they kind of had conversation back and forth because it shows you that they're still humans and they're not robots. I like Joe Buck and Troy Aikman an awful lot. We'll miss them on Fox this year. But it got to the point they worked so much together that it was like two robots talking to each other. So I like it. Thankfully, I have Amazon Prime because the Rams and the Raiders play on Thursday night later this year. But I think it's new, and I think it's going to be the future of the NFL. I think we're going to see more streaming. The NFL Sunday Ticket, this will be the last year of that contract, and I think they go to Apple Plus TV. So I think if you don't like it now, you better get used to it, because that's the way that, well, really, that's the way all of entertainment is heading. We're going to a streaming service type society.
Yeah, I actually do not have Amazon Prime yet, but I'm probably going to, because, it's football, and Al Michaels is my favorite sports announcer. So to have him here, I'm going to miss hearing him on Sunday nights. I always enjoyed it, whether it was with Chris Collinsworth or with John Madden. I enjoyed it when he was on ABC as well with Monday Night Football. So, but I like the pairing. I like the fact that Kirk Herbstreit and Al Michaels will be together. And Jags history, actually, before we do the close, was actually talking about the new footballs that'll be used on Thursday night.
They're smaller and longer. It makes no sense.
I don't know.
That's just some other marketing ploy by the NFL.
I was about to say, that just sounds like a gimmick that you'd see in the XFL back in 2001. Yep. Not even the XFL now, because it's legit. I mean the XFL back in 2001 when it was all gimmicks.
He hate me.
Oh, but you gotta love Rod Smart for that.
Rod Smart, yeah.
Rod Smart.
Ended up with the Carolina Panthers.
Yep, I remember him. That was, well, folks. This has been one hell of an episode, James. Not too shabby, right?
Yeah, not bad at all.
So there you have our. Okay, well, before we do the close, we do have to say it. Who is your NFC champion?
I have the Rams going back to the Super Bowl. And that's me being honest. That's not me I really think that if they're going to be the 1 seed and the NFC has to go through SoFi, I think the Rams are headed back to the Super Bowl.
I think it's either going to be the Rams. And you know what? This is tough. I'm either going Rams. I almost just want to say, for the absolute hell of it, for the sake of being the sleeper guy, I almost want to say the Eagles.
Yeah. By the way, heading to the bottom of the 11th, Yadier Molina just struck out on a pitch in the dirt with the runners on the corners.
Worst farewell tour ever.
I think it's time to bench him. I think I got to go with Andrew Kisner.
Yeah. Well, we just got to find a guy that can play catcher that can actually run.
Yeah, no doubt.
But yeah, so you got the Rams, I got the Rams, or it's not going to be the Seahawks, which is fine by me. Folks, I hope you all enjoyed tuning in this week for the NFC preview of the 2022 NFL season. I'll tell you, it definitely was a mouthful and a handful. Next week, we'll be going through the entire AFC. And, within the next week, I'm sure a lot more news will be happening. Like I said, a lot of players are being cut and added to rosters. Trades have been happening. So lots been going on. And we hope that when it's time, you tune in with us right here. And before we close, of course, as always, I want to talk about mental health issues and how you always do have that lifeline to call if need be. Mental health is a serious part of life, and it should never be one that people should abuse or take advantage of. And you can call the NAMI hotline at 1-800-950-NAMI. It's open 24/7. So, on top of that, as always, we put the Suicide and Crisis hotline. There used to be a phone number. Now it's just 3 numbers. It's just dial 988. And It's open 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. Understand that you're never alone. Out there in the world, there are those who love you and care about you, want to help you, will listen to you. And, we were all put on this earth for a reason. There's a difference between being alive and living. So be sure to go out there and live. Thank you so much for tuning in to Roundabout Sports this week, presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media. My name is the Maestro Jeremy Karp. He's Hollywood James Knox. Be sure to tune in next week. And remember, life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in. Make your lives worth reading.